All right, as an extension of the concepts and hands-on exercises that we did, we try to set up access control apps on iPhone. First, we used the hard-coded credential data. And then secondly, we set up, all right, here's a blackboard that you can see two codes posted here. One is for download the JSON. What happens here, you can, we already posted the sensor data and image data to the server. Now you need to download it. The format of data that you can download from the server could be many, but for your iPhone apps, better to get it in JSON formats. So how, actually the server side programs is already programmed to send out data in JSON format in response to your request. So if it is a request, then you need to send, you need to add this data on your code. This data, if you see here, there is a completion handling. It's a completed, and then there is a reserved word called @escaping. I am going to explain that, what it means, on my slide. Simply you can see, oh, there's escaping handlings. The motivation to build this kind of functionalities in Swift language, which is not available in any other languages. Your iPhone app developments and the apps needs to communicate with the external resources. So you have your own somehow sequence of your codings. As you click one button, for example, then it needs to access some external resources. For example, in a case that, hey, I want to download the data from some of the REST API server, then it takes a while, right? Until it is a lot slower than the internal code sequence. Your code can move so quickly, but when you click button to receive the data from a remote server, which is a lot slower than your the code running on your CPUs. So there's a big mismatches. If you leave it as is, like normal codings, then there is an error. So in this case, this guy says, hey, even if we have two different threads, your main thread and another thread is to access remote data, then the other threads can say to this main thread, hey, please wait, I am waiting for the data, so you can do that a little later. Do not make any errors. It should be handled properly. In that case, we can say escape, okay? So as you can see here in this code, there's a URL. URL is to download. This is the same one that we did when I see this sensor data to retrieve. Then we need to we need to have here, for example, if you want to add a user ID, then then you need to add this to this address in a similar way that we did here. This is the PHP code. At the end, there's a question mark. ID equals your ID and then your first name. You have to add these things on your code. That's what the way that you could do like this. You can add post data, and that post data to this method, and then going here, you have to access with this request. The request is combined with this is a request combined with the URL and whatever the parameters with the value. So all of those requests goes to this URL sessions. In this URL sessions, then data can be JSON data can be serialized, can be downloaded, and we receive it into our local variable MySQL result. Because this is a escape and completion handling, so this completed, this is self callback. So I want to call back this function. Actually, this function tagged with the escaping. Input is null, output is null. We don't need to say anything about input, anything about the outputs. We simply, in that case, we simply invoke it by completed open and close parentheses. Within this dispatch asynchronous the modules. So this, you don't need to do this. You simply copy this into your file. And then, so your login and password, the credentials is not hard-coded. Credentials is not saved on your local device, but could be verified at the server side. So you can send your login and password to the server, and the server would say, hey, you are verified or not. And accordingly, your local apps can continue to work, okay? So one addition to that is, once you are verified, then we can display photos that you posted, that we did, right? It's not necessarily your photo, but any photos. Much better if you post your own photos. So your iPhone can show your photos, right? So that is the whole idea that we need to do. Actually, I recorded this already. So if you, hey, it could be on your so we want some recordings. Okay, yeah, this is pretty much already done. Yeah. So what I will do, I am going to give you some of the theory behind it. So this is something that you see, right, on the videos. Yeah. So you can follow this. Actually, what we need to do, so we have a PHP code running at the server side. And as I said, if your app needs to work with remote devices or remote databases, then there should be some of the function mismatches, right? Latency issues. So there's a simple code that you may be able to understand. The function is defined in this way on your left-hand side. This is a very simple functions, right? Function name foo, and then there's a URL string that is parameter to receive by this function definition. And we simply have two print statements, and this function may be invoked by this statements foo, and then we can send https://mercy.edu. Then it goes to that function definition, function implementation, and inside of this function implementation, there's two print statements. So those two print can be print out. This is output. So this left column shows you typical the coding style. On the right hand side, this is more mobile developments, apps developments. This is very not only on your iPhone apps, but also Android phones use a similar concept as well. So this right-hand side code it can do similarly to the left-hand side code. But this case, only straightforward, those two print statements will be printed out. On the right-hand side, you have to bring up completion handling concept. So you have to define completion functions. These functions inside this parameter descriptions. Remember that function name, open parenthesis, like here, left-hand side, and then you put here variables, right? Usually. So variable is a URL, fine. But there is a function. This is itself a function. Completion colon, open and close parenthesis, arrows, open and close parenthesis. This itself is a function. What this function can do is to take nothing, to return nothing. But simply, it tells us mission complete. Okay? So two print statements, like left-hand side. And then at the end of this, then we can say completion. And this function can be invoked, very similar to this. Well, we could put here one more print statements to see how it works. Then these two print statements appears. When this is done, then if you see here these functions, this function you have to see very carefully. This is function invocation. So open and close parentheses. When you call a function, typically in most other languages, if you call the function, you simply do function name and parameter and close parentheses. That's it. Think about Python, okay, or Java. But in this case, this is function invocation. Usually, typically, in most other languages, it stops here. But in this invocation, goes further. Open curly braces, and do more, and close curly braces here. Looks like it is a function definition, right? When you define functions, function name, open curly braces, and then whatever the statements, and close curly braces. This style is usually done when it comes to function definition, not function invocation. Function invocation, we simply do like this. This is function definition. But actually, this is not function definition. This function should be defined in this way, and even further. This is the completion handling. Okay, in the completion handling, one of the parameters should be function definition, and then when it comes to this function to be ended, then you can say completion, and that can be called. You can do even further. After this function completed, if you want to do based upon that action, for example, hey, I want to access and download the data from remote server, and my coding still further, and then I want to do others and more. Ideally here, you invoke this guy invoke this function, and whatever you have within this implementation here, curly braces, this curly braces handles when this guy is done, when that remote data is available, then you do further. Hey, I want to do print. This C is color, for example, this print statements. So when this two statements is done, then you can do this. Next slide even shows you more. This is simply that we've done, okay? If we want to do escape function here, actually escape function is the things that you need to do for completion handling, and that is what we looked at here, right? Escape and completion. This is without escape. Remember this left-hand side, that is the exact same function to this right-hand side in the previous slide. The next slide, I just copied in and minimized it, smaller. Right-hand side, we do here escape, and then this completion function is within dispatch queue.main.async. What it does is that this, whatever you access internet or remote databases, you need to put them in a queue. Do you know the queue? Right, in data structures. So when JSON data comes in, then data doesn't come in one packets, right? It could be multiple packets. So it can piled up within that queue, and when that queue is full, queue is operating asynchronously, but at the end you have to dispatch the queue so that when all the JSON data comes in, then you can dispatch it and you can say complete. All the data comes in. So logically that should be done, right? And when you call it, same thing, you don't do much. This is the same as the left-hand side, okay? At the end you can say one additional, the end. So how it works, when you call this, then goes here in the definition and two print statements. And meanwhile, this guy needs to go to the remote access and bring the JSON data. When the data complete, then it completes, right? Yeah. But as I said, it takes time, right? So, but this guys already know, oh, data comes in. This guy, the invoke side, still do the next statements. So A2 here, A2 in foo2, B2 in foo2, and then rather than this guy and system holds, rather than hold the system, the next print statement is printed. And then finally, hey, all data comes in, then you can say C2 hold. When all the data comes in, then here, inside of this color statements, the print statement comes. if it's compared to this left-hand side, immediately this guy C2 cold, right? But in this case, there's a dispatch queue and then escaping. So even if the next statement is done, still this guy receives continually until it is done. When it comes to the completion, then finally this guy says, this is complete, therefore inside of this caller statement is printed. This is printed. Actually, if you see this statement itself, this C2 comes before the end, right? But the end printed first, and then this earlier print statements not printed until this guy says complete. Even further here, if you do here, when you do this dispatch queue, I want to set up the global variable, var, and I say done in foo3, and then completion. When I complete, I can also send value completed. Therefore, this completion function text string return nothing, text string. So completion text string completed here in this definition. And then finally, another print statement. Finally, and global var, which is done in foo3. This is the implementation of, this is the definition of a function, foo3. This foo3 function is invoked, very similar to the previous. This is invocation statements, and next statement is another print statements, the end. Same thing here, print statement, the end. Whatever you do inside, that is executed when this guy says completions, right? So this works in this way. When you invoke this, then A3 in foo3, the first first print statements in the definition, and the second print statement in the definition, and this guy is still working, right? Queuing all the internet JSON data. This is still working. Therefore, the end comes first here. And when this guy is done, then this is completion. Completion send completed value, right? So this send to this caller statement. This completed can receive this variable internally with success variable, and if success is not null, then we need to print this success. So success is nothing but completed. So next one is completed, printed. This is very, very tricky here. But anyway, this guy says completion before print, completion, and this caller statement says, oh, hey, this guy is completed. So this guy sent to me the value completed. I want to receive it by this success variables. And next, the very first statement in this caller statement is print statements. So we print success, which is completed. That is printed. And then send out this completion message, and this guy says another print statement. Finally, global variable, which is done in foo3. So here finally, no, it's final. This is not finally yet. This guy comes a little later. After this print, and then there are two other print statements. It's continually executed. All right, print really this global variable, this global. So really done in foo3, and then within this caller statements, in this sequence, another print statement, C3 in caller, and after this guy's a completion, therefore this is completed. Finally, this guy says the last print statement. Finally, globe bar, which is done in foo3. So finally done in foo3. Look at this very carefully, and you have to think multiple, which is the right way that this can be executed. This is most important. And after that, this is similar to the ones that I did, right? This is called, and this is when you have images, then the idea here is this: when we posted sensor data and images, right? So sensor data, by looking at sensor data, use actually looking at the sensor data, there is a login ID, your last name and first name. So taking last name and first name and check your login process. When you are verified, then because we have images at the server side, so one of the images bring up and display on your app. How can you bring down your images? First, you have to have another in this extensions. There's a URL. You have to download this URL. By having this URL, and then actually this is URL needs to be received, right, from outside. And then that URL is the URL that we have here. This is a URL. You need to use this URL. This URL only for you to see if your image is properly posted at the server. This URL is those are same URL except the parameter and values. ID equals last name and first name equals first name. This address is the same all the way up here, this guy. That should be used on your here, your extension. You have to get the let me explain this. You have to get the you have to see here user ID and first name, and there is a file name. This is the file name. Okay, this file name is automatically generated at my PHP server. You don't have to worry about this. But when you display file owned by you or posted by you, then your program needs to get this file name. If there are many files, then randomly choose, so random selection. So randomly choose one of the files. This is a file name. actual file is stored at another directory, which is right. This is the extension definition. You simply copy and paste on your code. I'll show it to you. So what you need to do, I'll bring up the code. Okay, here. Okay. As I said, this extension of UI image view should be copied and pasted like this. Inside, this is the actual code below this. This is something that we did hard-coded things. This is something that we did the local database. And at the end here, download the JSON. So when you call that functions, you need to, here in this download the JSON. Before you call this download the JSON, you need to send this URL with this URL with user ID equals login, and then password equals pass that you learned from, you take from user enters. Why don't I yeah, this is the emulator. So when you put here, say, login, my last name, password is my first name. When I enter this, then this guy take this login and attach it to USID and password to UPass, but there should be an @ sign. What it meant here is like this: ID equals UN @ sign and F name. Very similar to that, right? So like this, and then it goes to S author retriever PHP files. So go with this. The request is take this URL, and that request even further attach post data. This is post data, right? Post data, which is question mark and like this, question mark and parameter equals value. That is this, question mark and parameter equals value, and another parameter equals values. That is attached to this request.http body, and that request is sent to download JSON function. That download JSON function is at the end here. This download JSON function takes that request and then URL sessions goes to that request. This is invocation. Remember, this is invocation. Yeah. Invocation, when this is already defined. You don't have to define URL session dot shared dot data task, already given by Xcode. This is escape handlings. Completion and escape handlings. This is caller statements followed by this curly brace all the way here, up to here, and this function itself, when this complete, we don't have to worry about that function itself. We simply see how we can invoke that function. That function probably inside send these three values: data, response, and error. We simply use it in the similar way that we did, like here. This guy, we don't know this, but we know this, how to invoke. That is exactly what we did here. We do not know what this this guy is defined, but we need to know how it works, like this. How it works? It's like this. How it works? We receive the data because it says, in this case, we have only one value. Probably this is escaping, completion, colon, escaping, and then it says three values in a tuple formats. So data, response, and errors. Those three values are local variables that we can handle it. Here, if there is a response, okay. If there is a data, okay. Therefore, we need to JSON serialization, JSON objects, and then data is assigned to my local variable, MySQL result. And then finally, we say here, dispatch queue and then complete. This is another completion. Therefore, when you come here, when the authentication creation data is available, then we further inside this download the JSON request. We need to print out for our MySQL result. In the MySQLs, it gives us password and login ID and password. If I show to you how it works, then I can show to you in this way. Can make this, and then question mark, use ID equals un and let's see what it does here. upass equal password. upass equal and John. See what it works. It says when I do this, it gives me passed yes, user un. This is verified at the server side. If it returns yes, verification passed. Therefore, I need to check here. If passed equals yes, which means that is verified. Once user ID is verified, then next thing that we need to do here is we want to show one of the images. So image is located in this on this file, which is the file that we looked at. We can redo. We can copy this and here, and files can be done here. ID equals, so we can say here, equals ID equal Yoon. Then we can see Yoon's images, photos only, the list of those photos. Yoon has these many photos, right? So one of the file name is this, and there are many file names here. Oh, there's no file name. Oh, that is the reason file name is, oh, this is file name. Okay, so here, same thing, that we invoke download the JSON and get the file name. So one of the file name, if we want to get one of the file name, then we need to have here random number generations. To get the random number generations, then we need to set the size of the MySQL. So how many files are posted by Yoon? How many files are posted by Richard, for example? So if you posted 10 files, then let's say that is image count 10. So random number can be chosen from anywhere between 0 and 10, but less than 10. So because it is like an array or like a vector or list in Pythons, right? It is accessed by index numbers from 0 to, if it is a 10, then up to 9, right? 0 to 9, that is total 10 numbers. So take any number, any integer number between 0 and 10, and that index number is accessed, and then let's say if it is at 5, then this is the first element, this is the second element from here to the end, and this is the third element from here to the end here, and this is the fourth element. If it is a fifth, then next one here, this is a fifth. 5, if 5 is randomly chosen, and then there is a file name, this file name. So take these file names, that file names, okay? That is my file name. If I know that file name, then finally, I want to get the image down. I can get the images from this another URL. So I can say here, so another here, and then file name could be, let's say, one of these. Let's say if it is down. So I put here that file name, see if it is downloaded. Oh, that file is not found. So let's choose another. So come here, if I use that and enter, that file is not found. Oh, that found finally. So in this case, that comes and when this file downloaded, then that is where is my this simulator? When this guy, I want to go ahead to remote credential login. 1911, that is my two-factor authentication. And 1911 and verify me. It comes here, but image does not rendered, but image file downloaded here. If you see here, jyun.jpy, I want to show it how it works. And this space is the space that you need to get the image down. But as you see here, some images, because it's randomly chosen, I have so many images posted, but some of the images, as you looked at, some of the blank, right? Real images, if there is a real image, then it can be displayed here. We can try to this until we see that image down. See, here's another images. This is image files, right? This is the space that we made here in this main. This is the space, okay? That is this space, right? This is one of the UI, right? This UI is defined this is a UI image views. Type of, there are many of the components here, many of the components, only the others are UI text field, UI labels, but this space is only for UI image view. This UI image view takes only the images locally saved. If you want to view that images from remote side, then you need to add some of the special functionalities. That special functionalities is added here. This is an extension of this UI image view. How you can, what kind of functionalities that you extended further? By download from the URL. Don't worry about this, but simply copy these extensions into your this code view controller. Okay? I'm going to post this introductory lecture, and also there is a main lecture entirely, so you may be able to follow this whole. This is your next homework assignments. Okay, I think this is done for today. Short, so yeah, I want you to have a good July 4th while you are working on this homework assignments. Okay. This is a little tough ones, but as a summary, two codes are given, so you don't have to worry about. So whenever you want to access the remote server to download the JSON, then you can use that. Actually, it is, if you see this code, JSON here, if you compare this with the data here, or yeah, I want to show this to this website further. Yeah, if you see these websites, then website code, then download the function, does not have extra parameter, but start with the completed function itself, right? And this URL is embedded in this function. But in this sample code that I recorded, not only this, like here only this completion parameter only, right? But here completion parameter, in addition to that, request. So this request on your code here, embedded inside. But this code started from this URL sessions. See here, URL sessions. Started from here. This was missing, but these things, because this function need to be called multiple times. First time, when you check your user credentials, go to different URL, and anyway, the way that you receive JSON data is the same. Therefore, you called these functions with the different request. Request means different URL. So I take this out, this highlighted here, and this one's formed before you call these functions out from outside. So if you see here, you formed this URL request before you call this. So that request, it comes here. First credentials. And then when you access the images, so this is an image URL, and before you call that download JSON, you use request to different URL, goes to there. Okay. Finally, you need to download the image itself. So you need to have this another URL and get the file names, and the rendering the images is done by the extension code that's given already to you. So you have to extend the image view definitions by adding this extension mode here. Okay? Do you have a question? This is one time really a little bit high-tech coding concepts involved. Maybe confused the first time, but you need to practice this, and by experiencing, you may understand. All right. You guys have a happy